We've had this attack near to the centre of Beirut. We've had other attacks ongoing across southern Lebanon. After the killing of Hassan Nasrallah, any theory or hope, I suppose, that things might calm down a little don't seem to be being heard at the moment?
Well, I'll pick up on what Iris has just been saying, and that is that I think that Israel has become more galvanised as a result of the recent attacks over the past couple of weeks, the walkie-talkie attacks, the pager attacks, the killing of several of Hezbollah's key figures, and then the death of Hassan Nasrallah himself. Certainly, I think that's going to boost Benjamin Netanyahu's opinion polls after the widespread criticism over the attacks in Gaza. So I think what we're seeing is that they're saying, the Israelis, OK, if you're there and you're going to even contemplate attacking Israel, we're going to find you, we're going to kill you, just as we've been doing with all of the leaders of Hezbollah over the past couple of weeks. So you better think again if you're planning an attack against Israel, because we know where you are and we know how to get you. There's a big question that remains unanswered right now. And of course, the Hassan Nasrallah's death, which happened late on Friday, according to reports, means that he has to be buried pretty quickly. There's going to be a funeral. We don't know anything about that funeral, at least unless Iris Mackler can update us on it. And there are quite a lot of questions. Who will be present? Where will it take place? I mean, there are many thousands of people in Lebanon who would like to go. Which leaders of Hamas who are still alive will be taking part at that funeral? And will the man who is earmarked by all reports to take over from him, i.e. Hashem Safieddine, be there as well, because of the security threat not only to Hezbollah but also to other people in Lebanon if Israel wants to launch a strike to hit that funeral procession. So, I mean, there are a lot of questions concerning that. And also we've seen in this attack in Beirut the deaths of 3 members of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, which has given its support to Hezbollah. So it's not only Hezbollah that's being targeted, but also other militant groups which are in support of the Palestinians.
Iris, at the beginning there, Philip was talking about Israel being galvanised. We were talking just before we came on air, Iris, and you were saying to me how it appears that the whole resistance, if you like, in the Middle East has been upended, if you like, by the death of Hassan Nasrallah.
Yes, I think you could say that the question now is, what will Iran do? Iran created what it called this ring of fire. It was the idea, the theory, the doctrine of Qasem Soleimani, the legendary head of the Revolutionary Guard, assassinated by the US in 2020. And that's why you see support for Hamas, which is actually not part of this ring formally, but you do see support for Hamas after its attacks on October the 7th from Hezbollah, from Yemen, from militias in Iraq and in Syria. And now that the chief, if you like, proxy, Hezbollah is injured, is damaged, is in disarray. I have no update on that funeral because there isn't one. You know, they don't know when he'll be buried, and they haven't yet announced his successor. So with all that disarray, it's now Iran that has to come. Will Iran come to save its proxies? And it's a very, it's a fraught question, because, you know, all these were set up to protect Iran. Now will Iran step in? There has been criticism from Shia groups in Lebanon saying, where is Iran? So that is a real question. And we've just heard from an American spokesperson talking to CNN this morning that, yes, it does expect an Iranian counterattack against Israel. We hear that from Israeli security officials all the time. The question is where and when, and what does this weakened ring of fire around Israel, what does the weakening of these militias mean for the response?
And Philip, not only some kind of reaction from Iran, but whether a new front's been opened as well, as Iris was talking about there with Yemen.
Oh, that's quite right. And this also leads one to believe that the recent successes of the Israeli army against Hezbollah has given them the impetus to launch this new front against Yemen and the Houthis. The Houthi regime, which have been causing widespread damage to shipping and launching attacks against areas of southern Israel. Another step in the direction of trying to not directly attack Iran, but to attack its proxies, as Iris was just saying. And it's interesting to note how Iran might reply or not reply, because it's in no one's interest, and least of all Iran's interest, to directly attack Israel, because we will spread this out to a much wider war, which will not only be Iran against Israel, but the United States also getting involved in it, and we could end up seeing a clash directly between the United States and Iran, which then would really spiral the whole situation out of control. So I don't think Iran wants to get directly involved. It must be very, very mixed up about which decision to take. I know there are meetings of Iranian leaders to discuss the way forward after this. Iran wants to keep hold of its nuclear system, its nuclear development. It doesn't want that to be destroyed. That is really its key objective, and it knows that if it launches any attacks against Israel, the retaliatory attacks will be almost immediate. So that's why it's been fueling these proxies over the past few years. But if these proxies are knocked out of order, then that just leaves Iran on its own to try to face Israel, and that means everybody around Iran is going to be severely weakened. So it's a very interesting situation. But the other question that I think has to be asked right now is, what is Israel's end game in all of this? How does it see this all working out? Because it won't be able to get rid of Hezbollah completely, it won't be able to get rid of Hamas completely, and it won't be able to stop Iran from trying to rebuild its proxies at a later date. So they may have won a battle right now, and it doesn't mean that the Israelis have won the war.
Let's talk finally, Philip, about the US and their position following Nasrallah's assassination. A bit of a shift, you think?
Well, I think we've seen a change in the way President Biden has been calling for restraint in the Israeli offensive, first of all, against Hamas, where he's been widely criticised for backing Israel right the way down the line, even splitting society in the United States between those who are in favour and those against the Israeli attacks against Hamas in the Gaza Strip, saying that, of course, Israel has the right to defend itself, and carrying on with the shipment of weapons and aid to Israel. Then we saw President Biden saying at the United Nations last week, well, there needs to be a ceasefire. It's in no one's interest that there's a wider war in the region, calling for restraint. This 3-week ceasefire agreement that the US agreed to, that said principally that Benjamin Netanyahu himself had agreed to before backtracking when he got to the United Nations General Assembly. And now President Biden is saying, well, Nasrallah's killing was a measure of justice for his many victims. So almost giving the green light to Israel to say you did the right thing to go in there and kill him. But that might have also led to a spiraling out of control of the situation in the whole region. So I think quite a mixed up message coming out of the United States. But remember, the United States is much more concerned right now with the election campaign, and that is something I think that is probably taking over most of the attention, more than what's going on in the Middle East.
Philip, thanks very much. Philip Turle, International Affairs Editor there. And as Philip was talking, in fact, we're just hearing from Hezbollah, hearing that Hezbollah's deputy chief is due to give a statement, in fact, in around 50 minutes' time. So at 11 a.m. Paris time, 9 a.m. GMT. Of course, if anything comes out of that, we'll follow it for you here on France 24. Philip, thanks again.